Most of the shows would have like two storylines, two things you'd play against it, like an A and B. A classic was the birth, when you had Jamie giving birth to Mabel, and at the same time you had Paul, who had to go back home and get her ring, and that was the episode where you had Bruce Willis in.
You at the hospital? No. Security? No. The press? No, nothing like that. Oh, I'm trying to have a little moment of privacy. Thanks. Jay, sure, hey, please, sorry. Yeah.
That was the only guest star that I can think of that worked the other way, where he actually, to our great surprise, he said, I want to do the show. And he was a friend, and I'd known him for a while, and he said, but I'd love to do the show. And I thought, well, you know, he'd never ask him. And then you'd ask him, and it wasn't the right time. And then I said, well, you better kind of do it soon, because
we're winding down.
We're winding down, buddy. And he happened to call exactly then. And we had, for the year, you know, we certainly knew where that season was ending. It was going to end with the baby being born.
This is not it?
Nope, not it. Often mistaken for it, but not it.
You sure this isn't it?
Yep, false it. Take my word for it. That's my job, distinguishing actual it from not it.
There was a buildup of, we kind of got tired of hearing our own voices, and we sort of thought one of the funny things of that story was that the family is with us. Oh, false alarm. Everybody run to the hospital. Family's with us. And by the third time, you know what, guys? You're really more of a...
We're tired of you.
We're tired of you. And so we had that story, and we thought, well, how do you, not dilute it, but how do you spread it out, and so it's not just about watching her belly and her family. And putting somebody in peril is always funny. And just, and Helen brought in just the dynamic of the thing of that she can't stand the sound of my voice, but only for little 30-second spurts.
I'm not allowed to talk?
Please?
Joan just talked. And
Anybody can talk, just not you.
Just don't understand why
What,
I'm
are
the
you
only
kidding
one
me
on
now? You're going to pick a fight with me now? You're going to start with me now? A woman told me that when she was in labor, she could not stand the sound of her husband's voice. And I said, you mean anybody talking? She said, no,
just
his.
Just Fred.
But
then it would go away. And then it would go away. And that just, I watch that, it still makes me laugh. Just the idea, like, oh, I'm okay now. And you go, shut up. Nope, just a hand on the face.
My dad also said he got to work, he was directing that episode, and he thought, okay, Bruce Willis, he might be late, so we may not have him for much time. He probably has to go. He already had been there for 45 minutes before even any of us got there. And my dad said, when do you have to be out? Well, whenever. Really?
Couldn't get rid of him.
He was like, you know, great. He really wanted
and we thought he was totally on board with the idea of doing himself, which we had never done. And we thought, well, you got to have fun with it. And so we did all these die-hard jokes, and Bruce in like this concussion-induced stupor. He did that line about, do you want to make out a little bit?
I'll give you a little kiss. Sure. You want to make out a little bit? I don't. No.
Every woman I know who's given birth said that was the most accurate rendering of that process from a woman's point of view.
Better watch it.
But can you just share with us, how did you nail that? How did you nail that moment of pain and ecstasy, but a lot of pain, particularly the moment where you can't get the drugs?
Right. Well, that came also from someone's birth experience that I robbed for our show, where they had waited too long, and then the doctor was like, you know what, you needed to ask before, and that just seemed funny if it's not you.
Now, Jamie, honey, you see, it's too late.
What?
There's a certain window of opportunity during which an epidural can be administered, and in your case, you waited so long that, well, now...
Now what?
The window is closed.
It's closed? Open it!
I can't.
You can't open the window?
The window is closed.
No, open the window.
Honey, it's closed.
Break it! Break the window. What kind of doctor are you?
I can't break the window.
You're fired. You're fired. So that came from a friend. But in terms of the acting of it, I watched a lot of birth tapes. You know, they have Lamaze tapes, so you can watch the whole thing happen. And then, I don't know, your imagination, you know?
Yeah.
Your imagination and the 5 years that led up to it in terms of our connection and my own wishes, and it's whatever, this combination of whatever craft you've learned and whatever your imagination can deliver.
Moody Blues dealt with postpartum depression. And this is something that every mother knows about to one degree or another, but it was very interesting to see Jamie dealing with the problems. And trying also, she was in denial, as I remember. It was something that she didn't want to do.
Do you remember what Sheila said? She had a lot of new moms. You know, it's very common to have a sort of a postpartum depression.
Stop it. Stop it right there. Kindly do not reduce me to some dime store psychological cliche.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying.
Postpartum depression is about unhappiness, mood swings, anxiety, and weepiness, okay?
Can you just talk about creating those moments and what that was like for you?
I should just say the writing was really good, and it was very fun to be, I made it a point to keep the padding on for the year after the baby was born, because I thought for those people that come up to us on the street and say, you're just like me, to show up and have all of her baby weight gone in 3 episodes just wasn't quite fair. But it was fun just to be coming apart at the seams, you know what I mean, to get to play somebody who's losing it and not so attractive on the inside, especially considering she poisoned some girl's chance at a wedding.
This is my practice hair.
I'm sorry?
For my wedding. My boyfriend, my fiance, Russell, and I are getting married.
Congratulations.
We're very happy.
Yeah, good for you.
Are you married?
Oh, yeah. And then this whole other thing that was going on, this Gilbert and Sullivan thing, created this life of its own. Louis Zorich and Cynthia Harris, who played Paul's parents, were just, I think, so funny.
It was a show within a show, and then we, and sometimes the comedy, you find gold in places. What was the name of the guy who
Billy
played the piano?
Barnes is
Billy
a
Barnes.
lifelong friend of my family's who came in because he can play anything at any time. And
He played the
my
pianist
dad
at the rehearsal.
brought him in to be the pianist at the rehearsal, and every time Paul would tell him to stop, he just started creating this character, and when we did run-throughs, I fell down to the ground. I was laughing so hard.
I am the very model of a modern major general. I information, vegetable, animal, and... What do I say?
Already? You lost it? Oh, you got 4,000 words coming up here. Hang on 1 second. You say, Mr. Redland?
And it was sort of in some bizarre Rowan and Martin kind of thing, where he's playing these little stings.
But you also got a backstory on him, which is that, although he had no lines of dialogue, which is he's doing Gilbert and Sullivan, he's doing Pirates of Penzance, but there's a jazz pianist inside of him. And every time he finishes the moment, he reverts into this little tag, into a kind of jazz tag. Also, what was interesting, a kind of clue for the audience, is what a director does, because this is one of the few times you see Paul Buckman, who is a director. He's directing. He's not directing one of
theater,
his...
something that I had no business doing.
Well, and directing your father in a Gilbert traditional play, trying to explain Gilbert's joke about Lotta News and how he had to find a rhyme for Lotta News, which justified the word in the original Pirates of Penzance.
When you get to Lotta News, you can't find a word that rhymes right away. So what you want to do is think about it. Go, Lotta News, right? So like in your mind, you're thinking, what rhymes with Lotta News? Then you realize, hypotenuse.
But I don't have to think about it. The guy who wrote it had to think about it.
Constantly, your parents bringing you back to reality.
The way that the premise was set up, that the whole idea of having postpartum depression, that Jamie's take on it was that I know all about it, I've heard all about it, I am beyond that. And so, like, I do not want to be a cliche. And what was so true to her, and really ultimately the show, that we were so hip, and we're beyond that. We're not going to become our parents, and we're not going to be these kind of parents to our child. And maybe a little, and you do, and you don't quite always live up to your expectations. And to watch that character just wallow while fighting it, one of the funniest performances of the lovely Helen Hunt in a series. Let's take a look.